Today I want to share with you how recognizing some simple patterns in your life is going to take your personal and spiritual growth to the next level. And I see this again and again with the people that I'm working with, that when they gain this awareness about their patterns, that they start to use and manage the energy in a more evolved way. You become more aware of yourself. The first of these patterns is an astrological cycle, and it's the Saturn cycle. Now, I want you to think with me, what was happening in your life at around the age of 29? Sometimes it's a bit earlier, 28, sometimes a bit later, 30. But what happened in your life at that time? Normally, it's something quite pivotal. It can be that you get married, it can be you have kids, you could get divorced. Maybe it's a career change or an important new job. Maybe you change countries, but this marks a turning point in our lives. And this is because the planet Saturn has done a full cycle around our birth chart. Saturn is the planet of responsibility. It's the planet of maturity. Saturn wants us to grow in a way that is aligned with our soul's purpose. And when we reach this age of around 29 years old, it's asking us, how are we doing? Are we hearing the calling? And so for me, this age was pivotal. At 28 and a half years old, I got married. And yes, marriage is a wonderful experience. For me, it was life-changing. But when we're talking about this cycle, we're not necessarily talking about the event in itself. We're talking about the energy and the psychological changes behind the event. So when I got married, it wasn't just about meeting my soulmate and having a change of direction. I was being asked to leave my old life. And my old life was one of addiction. I loved the party lifestyle, and I considered it and the people that were in that life to be the most important thing that there was for me. And when I married my husband, there was an ultimatum. I could stay in that life and continue to ignore the calling that I needed to change path, that I needed to take another direction. Or I could choose the new life with my husband. And that might sound like a very easy decision to make, but for me, it wasn't an easy decision to make because I was so attached to that life. I didn't know anything else. And so I went through a period of deep soul searching, trying to understand why I was so attached to a life that was unhealthy. But in the end, I chose the new path with my husband. And since then, I have grown enormously. But now, understanding that pattern in my life, I know that now, when I've just had my 45th birthday, that I'm coming to another important marker. Because while Saturn has this 29 and a half year cycle, there are other markers. There's the halfway marker when we're about 15. And as we start the new cycle, we have another halfway marker around the age of 45. So again, I know that there's going to be a resonance to those experiences that I had in the first Saturn cycle. And guess what? I feel like I am also being asked to let go of the person that I've created. Saturn is the planet of boundaries, of structure. To let go of this new personality that I've created over the last 15 years to step into something more evolved. And so what part of the cycle are you in? Can you see that there was some inner shift that happened around that age? And if you haven't reached 30, then you're still in the first Saturn cycle. And you might have noticed that there were these markers that happened when you were 15, later when you're around 21, 22, what's called the last quarter. It's a fascinating pattern to look at. Some of us will be lucky to reach the third Saturn cycle, and many of you will be in your second Saturn cycle, which completes around the age of 58, 60. So what is it that you're being asked to master? Saturn says we have to be responsible for our own growth, but Saturn is the planet of time, so it takes time for us to evolve, to mature, as we have more experiences, as we move through life. So the next point about understanding patterns for personal and spiritual growth is understanding your menstrual cycle. If you're a girl, obviously. You might already be very aware of the time of month that your menstrual cycle comes, but tracking in more detail gives us so much more information. I use a free app called Clue, but there are lots of apps that can help you to track your cycle. This is useful because you can see things, you can notice patterns. For example, when you feel completely exhausted or when you have a lot of energy. One of the things that I noticed since using the app is that exactly 7 days before my period starts, I lose my shit. I go crazy with people. And so having this awareness, understanding this cycle that I live through, means that where I can, because we can't always organize our lives around these cycles, then I will try to avoid organizing workshops or big meetups when I know that my energy is going to be very low. And on the other side, then I might go all in and start really getting into a project when I know that my energy is going to be up there and high. It's a really easy cycle to track and one that can actually bring a lot of awareness. And I really think that you could even use this if you're going through menopause or after the menopause, because I believe that we still have cycles. So the final pattern that I want to talk about is about noticing what you're asking for each day. And I don't mean when you go to the supermarket and you're asking for a kilo of potatoes. No. I'm talking about when you are in that moment, when you are conversing with the universe, with God, which I hope you are doing in some way every day. What is it that you're actually asking for? Just to notice that thing. So perhaps you're a person that meditates regularly. Maybe you chant. Maybe your connection with spirit comes when you are out walking in nature. We all have our own way of connecting to the divine. And it's normal that we're asking for guidance, we're asking for protection, we're asking for more wealth, more health. We all do these things, I do as well. But here I'm asking you to really think about the energy behind that request. So let me give you an example here. Every morning I choose a crystal to carry with me during the day. And I intuitively choose a crystal and think about the energy that it's going to bring me and how I could maybe work with it during the day. And so I might pick up a crystal and say, please protect me throughout my day. Or perhaps I pick up a citrine and I say, I need some energy. Help me to feel more energized today. Now, just those two statements, I need protection, or I want to feel a certain way, the vibration, the frequency behind that request is one of lack. When we're on the spiritual path, when we have already gone through some kind of awakening, then we can get into these patterns, into these habits that we don't even realize, because we are a step ahead of other people. But it doesn't mean that we don't fall into old vibrational patterns. So those requests have a feeling of lack behind them, that I don't have enough energy, that I don't feel safe, and I'm asking for protection. What I'm inviting you to do here is to recognize that vibration and change it just a little bit. So when you're asking the universe, please God, keep my kids safe while they're at school today, for example, and you notice that the request has an energy of fear, of worry, to change that request slightly to something like, thank you, God, for protecting my children in your love and light. Or perhaps you're saying, please, universe, today, I really need you to bring me $1,000. You can turn that around to something that feels more open to a higher frequency. I am grateful for the wealth and abundance that comes into my life today. And even just simple affirmations. I'm energized and lively as I move throughout my day. You can sense that the vibration is different. And so these patterns are very subtle. Does this resonate with you? Does it make sense? I really hope that you start to see your own patterns and you have your own aha moments when you get that awareness. I actually have another video that I think you're going to really like. It's about using the days of the week more consciously. And it's also a really nice way to tune into the more subtle vibrations of the universe. Thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to read your comments, to get your messages, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.